Hello, everybody, and welcome to Beyond the Visor season number 2. Thanks for coming back once again to watch these episodes. Really appreciate it. If you've missed any of the episodes beforehand in season 1 and season 2, they are down in the description. But of course, stay here to watch this episode and then go back and watch the previous episodes. But today, in episode 2, I'm joined by the one and only F1 Maestro, also known as James. And if you don't know how these episodes work, guys, we sit down with people in the F1 community and get to know them a little bit better. But James is joining me in this evening, which I'm very much looking forward to having a chat with him. So let's get straight into it, James. I mean, we all know you for, well, I personally know you for with regards to sort of Formula One. So how long have you been a Formula One fan for?
I've watched F1 really for as long as I can remember. With like most people in the community, I think my dad got me into it in 2007, I think.
Mhm.
I was 6 years old back then, so I can't really remember it. But yeah, my first distinct memory of F1 would have been the 2008 Spanish Grand Prix where Kovalainen had a horrendous crash, and I remember that one. And yeah, I remember quite a lot of the 2008 season pretty well, being a Massa fan, obviously, the highlight of his career.
Oh yes,
But
of
yeah,
course.
I've been a fan for as long as I can remember, as I've said, and yeah, it's been interesting to see how it's changed throughout the years, although over the past decade, and I think it's been interesting for me as a fan in the community because most people have only been watching since like 2011, 2012,
Mhm.
so they didn't really get the old style of cars, I guess, from 2007 to 2008, which I personally prefer.
Oh yeah, 100% agree with you there. I mean, the cars back in sort of 06, 07, and even 08 were monsters. I mean, they're a lot smaller than the current cars, but I did like the aggressive nature of those previous cars. I mean, you referenced you're a Massa fan. You're the first person I've ever met who is a Massa fan. Like, why him though? Because I mean, of course, if you were Brazilian, you'd back him 100%. But as a Brit, why Felipe Massa?
I don't know is the honest answer. Like, generally, I can remember supporting him in 2008, but I have no idea why I chose to support him, and I just continued to support him since then. So, yeah, a bit of a weird one,
Mhm.
especially as I can't really give you an answer as to why I support him. I kind of do, and yeah, I was very, very happy with some of his drives, even later through the years as his career started to dwindle away in the Williams, and now
Mm.
obviously moving on to Formula E, which hopefully will be good for him.
Hopefully. I mean, it's just like a football team. Whatever team you're in, you just stick with that team. You can't change it. You're born into that team, and I'm guess it's sort of similar in that way to following Massa. But of course, not just Formula One. In real life, you're also big on the F1 games. I mean, when did you start playing those and sort of racing competitively on your game console?
So yeah, obviously being an F1 fan and a child of playing video games is that's the sort of thing you do like football fans with FIFA, for example. So yeah, first F1 game I played was F1 2009 on the Wii, which
Oh
is
God! Oh,
and
that's something.
was an interesting experience.
Yes.
Yeah, despite the game being absolutely terrible, I mean I didn't know much better as an 8-year-old, so I enjoyed that quite a lot. And then I played 2010 through to 2014 on the PS3. I was all right, but I had a really crappy wheel, and I refused to play on the pad because I just can't do it.
Mhm.
So yeah, I was all right at those games, but never in. Well, I didn't really know what competitive racing was, but I discovered AOR on Fizzy's channel on 2013, and from then on, I was decided that's what I wanted to do at some point. And eventually, when we went to Xbox One, I got a proper wheel. My parents spent quite a lot of money. I put some towards it as well,
Mhm.
and that allowed me to improve quite a lot over what I had previously been able to do on the PS3. And unlike most people who just gave up on 2015, I was committed. I put a lot of hours into that game and improved a huge amount over that game. I got into league racing in like October, um, and by the end of that game, I was in AOR F1. Admittedly, there was only 2 tiers that season, but still awesome to say that I did race in the top tier of AOR, and probably something I won't get to do again unless next year's game comes out and I'm a god at it. But I don't see that happening.
Yeah. Do you think the way you got into the top level of league racing was just because you just sweated massively, or maybe you and the game just clicked perfectly? What do you think that was?
Yeah, I can't lie and say I didn't sweat a lot. I did,
Mhm.
not as much as some people in that game. Uh, Dizzy Cupid, or now known as Brendan Lee, also came to the forefront of Lee racing on that game, and he sweated it a lot more than I did. But yeah, I did practice a lot on that game, whereas other people didn't. So it was easier for me to be competitive. But as you said as well, I think I just did click with that game, and I'd probably still say that's my best game to date. And unlike most people who hated that game, I would happily go back and still play 2015 today. I don't
Mm.
know why. It's just personal enjoyment for me from that game was much better than definitely 2017, and I'm getting a bit bored of 2018 at this point, so probably that as well.
Yeah, of course. When you click with a game, I mean, um, for me, it's a different, different genre. Battlefield, I love that game. I played hours and hours of that. But I guess when you click with a game, it just works perfectly for you. And like you said, that time you put into it paid off. I mean, you say you spent a lot of time practicing for that game. Do you feel that you missed out on other things in life because you spent so much time playing that F1 2015 game, like missing out maybe times with friends or family, or maybe something completely different?
I wouldn't say so. Like, I mean, obviously, I did play it a lot, but I'd always prioritize stuff like doing stuff with friends. If I
Mm.
had to miss a league race for that, so be it. I mean, it's only a video game. At that point, money wasn't involved, so it wasn't worth sacrificing time, which could be much better spent with friends playing F1. And I say I sweated it a lot, but if I was to have a look at my friends list for that game, I don't think I'd be right at the top.
Mm.
And I did actually, ironically, end up playing 2016 more than I played 2015 in terms of game time.
Ah,
Um,
interesting.
I think that's because I did more league racing on 2016 because there was more leagues available,
Mm.
whereas most leagues just didn't run on 2015 because of how bad the game was at the start. So most just gave up on it.
Yeah, the game in 2015 wasn't fantastic online wise, and I remember seeing lots of complaints about it because that's when I came into the sort of league F1 community sort of time, and then getting on to league racing in F1 2016 then. But you mentioned earlier on AOR, you saw Fissy's videos, and that's how you got into the league racing scene. And now on the current game, you're an AOR coordinator. I mean, how is that? How is that as a sort of a part-time job for yourself?
Yeah, it's quite cool. I mean, I was helped out in other leagues in the past, doing like standings and stuff, but I've never actually fully run a league or a tier
Hmm.
by myself, which is basically what I'm doing. I'm coordinator for F5 on Xbox. People who follow me on Twitter will know that before the season started, I made a table of time trial times so people would know what tier they could maybe expect to be in.
Yes.
And after that, Bosley, who's one of the head coordinators on Xbox, approached me and was like, "Your tier currently doesn't have a coordinator. Would you like to do it?" And I was like, I thought it'd be a good opportunity for me to do something, obviously something that I would enjoy as well, on top of the racing in the league. So yeah, it didn't start very well in Australia. We had a very messy race, and
Hmm.
there was quite a lot of controversy over whether it should be rerun, which wasn't the ideal start to my first race coordinator. But
Imagine.
it's got better. It's got better since then. All the drivers appear to get on pretty well, um, and yeah, I've enjoyed it so far. Hopefully, the drivers can say they've also enjoyed it and they think I've done a good job. I don't know. Hopefully.
They'll have to watch us and see if we can get their opinions afterwards. I mean, as a coordinator, is there a lot of things we don't realise you do as a coordinator? I mean, I turn up every Sunday evening at 8 o'clock. I mean, I race and then that's it. I mean, how much work actually goes into being an AOR coordinator?
Well, as the coordinator itself, it's well, if you've got the drivers happy to cooperate, which most of them are in F5. You don't have to do a huge amount. Most of the drivers will tell you that they're not going to be able to resist them or send footage into the stewards. But if you've got some drivers who are lazy, you have to chase them up every so often, which doesn't take out a huge amount of time, but it's something that you shouldn't really have to do. And then obviously you have to, I'm probably allowed to say this, after every race, the coordinators give a report on what happened in the race on the forums, so all the head coordinators can make a note of if people are causing crashes, etc. But I'd say the most time-consuming thing is the stewards, because AOR is probably at the biggest point it's ever been. I think there's 11 or 12 tiers on Xbox. So you've got 11 tiers worth of stewards inquiry every week, which you have to look through and give your opinion. And I'd say that's probably the most time consuming. I couldn't put a number on it. I don't time how much time I spend watching stewards footage, etc. But that's probably what I'd say takes up the most amount of my time whilst coordinating.
So regarding the stewards inquiry, because it's interesting to have an insight onto this, because we don't, the majority of people will not know. Well, so let's say I put in a stewards inquiry, let's say against Bosley. So we're actually racing the same league as well, so I could actually do one or give him one. So that then gets moved on to the stewards. I mean, how many times is it reviewed? Is it reviewed by 3 or 5, or how many sort of processes does it go through until you get that final verdict?
So you'd post something on the stewards thread, Bosley would give his opinion, then the coordinator moves it over to the stewards, and all the coordinators on Xbox, I think, are stewards, and they'll then watch the footage, and there's a steward's manual on what constitutes what penalty. So, for example, causing, say you spun someone out and didn't give them any damage, that'd be a 5-second penalty and 5 penalty points.
Right.
And in most cases, the stewards are in agreement as to what penalty should be served out. So if 4 stewards agree, then it can be closed with that verdict. But from time to time, you get the odd controversial one. I can't think off the top of my head what's been controversial. This is actually the MAT 212 collision with Reynolds and Jason in Tier 1 in Canada. That was quite a lengthy one.
Really? Okay.
And if they can't agree, then you'll get the PS4 and the PC stewards as well to have a look as to what they think, if it's not easily decided by 4 or 5 Xbox stewards.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize how much detail went into it regarding stewards. That was very good insight. Good insight. Interesting. So, well, you mentioned the F1 drivers and the F1 community as we've been speaking so far. I mean, you've been around for a long time now. I mean, how much have you seen it change since you first got involved in the F1 community? Not only league racing, I mean, on social media as well. I mean, has it changed? Has it gone? Has it been good? Has it been bad? I mean, I'm sure you've seen plenty of bad things on Twitter. I mean, but sort of in general, has it gone positive way or a negative way?
Well, yeah, I'd say it's changed a lot, as in terms of the drivers who are around. Obviously, I'd say JD and Martin are probably the only 2 drivers. I probably missed someone out here. JD and Martin will go with are probably the only 2 drivers who were fighting at the front when I joined the community back in F1 2014, who are still there now. So there's been a huge turnover of drivers, as you'd expect, over 4 years. And social media has become much bigger. Pretty much every driver, and even people who aren't drivers, will have Twitter now, get involved, and that's a good thing to some extent, but also a bad thing, because it can cause arguments, etc. But at the end of the day, I think people do take. Obviously, I know that AOR F1 is very serious because there are prizes involved this season, but people do take it a bit too seriously, in my opinion, at some stages. Obviously, I'd be annoyed if I got taken out, but a day later, I mean, it's just playing a game. Get on with your normal life. If you're constantly bringing up beef in a serious way from throughout the season, I think that's just unnecessary. If you're bringing it up in a jokey way, then I mean that's fine if the other people are happy for the joke to be made. But I think it has become a bit too serious. Back in the days of season 9, you'd have Matt and JD having a laugh on Twitter pretty much every week about connection or corner cutting. But now, I mean, it's a bit hypocritical for me to say because I used to take corner cutting very seriously back in 2015 and 2016. I'm not as bothered anymore, but I do think people should take some things a bit more lightheartedly within league racing and enjoy playing the game a bit more. That's just my personal opinion.
But do you feel sometimes it's relevant because now, with F1 esports, there's money involved. So are some people's opinions and the way they react to certain things sort of not relatable? It sort of makes sense for them to react in that sort of way.
Yeah, I understand like frustration and stuff from being taken out in a league race or in the esports. I think in the final esports race in Abu Dhabi, I think it was Frederick Rasmussen posted a tweet about getting brake checked or something, which gave him wing damage, which obviously I know the championship was over at that point in terms of drivers, but when there's money involved on that kind of scale, that was quite crucial. I mean, in AOR and other general league racing in the community, the scale isn't as big, obviously, but there is more of a monetary element, I think, if that's the correct term, but to it now. So the frustration is fair and the reaction is fair, but once the race is over, once the heat of the moment is over, you don't need to keep on talking about it and bring it up throughout the next few weeks. The stewards will deal with it, get on with the next race, in my opinion.
And do you feel that it's sort of a certain age, a group that do this specific thing, or do you find that people of all sorts of ages are coming out with these bold statements on Twitter?
No, this is something that I do have strong views on. I posted a tweet about it a while ago. I think it was after the Chinese Grand Prix in AOR. There's an incident between Joe and Feisty Ted at the last corner, and everyone hopped on the bandwagon was, oh, young drivers don't know how to race, etc., etc. But personally, I think it's the same instance happened throughout league racing, and I don't think it's fair to pin the blame entirely on young drivers for the incidents and then the reactions on Twitter. Obviously, they're going to maybe not handle it as well as other people would, but to pin it entirely on them, I don't think that's right. I think you have to treat everyone fairly, and you have to look at the whole picture where you get everyone complaining and being maybe insulting on Twitter. I try and stay out of it now. I don't see the fact there's anything to gain, so I try and ignore it for the most part. But I don't think it's fair to entirely put the blame on young drivers in this situation.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I mean, it can really, if if you ever go at someone who's 13, 14, and you're an adult and you ever go at them, it can really affect them, their confidence. It can affect their mental state. I mean, it's not a nice thing to do, and I am against it. I mean, there's ways of dealing with it, and I think a lot of people get it wrong when they come out with things sometimes, and especially in this day and age when mental health is such a big thing, and it can really affect a lot of young people. And I think someone having a go at someone about a league race where they've had a crash or something like that, it can really affect people.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. Like, you need to take a moment to calm down and think before you tweet whatever you tweet at someone. And I mean, obviously, you could say, "Oh, but these people have submitted themselves to that by choosing to use a Twitter account." But no one should have to face like unnecessary name calling over what at the end of the day is a video game. And I think Danny mentioned this in the very first episode, but what I think Neil has done very well is kept Bailey away from Twitter and the potential backlash that can occur from there if there's an incident in a league race until maybe he's a bit older and more mature and not and able to understand and not going to get affected by potential insults, etc. Which I think is a very sensible choice from him.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, if someone's, you've had some sort of incident or you have this opinion and someone starts shouting at you going, oh, you're effing this and effing that, as I'm glad I wasn't on Twitter when I was sort of 13, 14 because I think that would affect me quite a lot. Um, but yeah, I think people do need to take a step back and reevaluate who you're having a go at. If it's adult on adult, I don't agree with it either, but I mean, it's maybe slightly more relevant because they're over the age of 18, they're more mentally sort of prepped, maybe not the right phrase, but yeah, I completely agree with what you said, and then, like you said, Neil has done a fantastic job with barely keeping him off Twitter because it can be a very nasty place at times, and not just Twitter. If you're talking about football or rugby, you have this opinion, someone has completely the opposite opinion. I mean, I'm sure you've got a lot of maybe hate from other football fans regarding, because of course you're a Chelsea fan, and I'm hoping 100% of people have agreed with the racial abuse for Raheem Sterling last weekend, and I can imagine even as just a Chelsea fan yourself, you must get abuse for this because you're a Chelsea fan.
Yeah, I mean, I was at the game last weekend, sitting pretty much in the corner where the incident happened.
Oh, really?
So I saw it at the time. I mean, I didn't know what was being said
Hmm.
at the time, but it's clear after seeing the video on Twitter that what was said was entirely inappropriate and unacceptable. And then again on Thursday, there was some chants at that game as well, which is ridiculous and it's quite frustrating because as a fan of that club, a club that I absolutely love and has brought me so many great memories, but for it to be ruined by a few idiots who don't understand that we're not living in the 1930s anymore and that it's not acceptable to go around calling people of different beliefs or ethnicities unacceptable names. That is quite frustrating. Niran put out a good tweet last weekend because people were jumping on the bandwagon of, oh yeah, Chelsea fans, what do you expect? They're all racist, which is obviously not the case. And Niran put out a tweet saying, if you're saying that all Chelsea fans are racist and think you're helping anything, you're a complete idiot, which is entirely correct. You can't categorize one group of millions of Chelsea fans on the fact that there are a few idiots. And it's obviously quite frustrating. I haven't personally received any abuse for it, but that's because I probably haven't got involved in replying to any of the tweets from like BBC Sport or whatever, which report it, because I have seen some Chelsea fans in the replies to that tweet getting unnecessary abuse when they haven't done anything wrong, which is quite annoying to see. But
Yeah,
go on.
No, you cut out slightly there at the end.
That's the way of social media, and unfortunately, people are going to get insulted when they haven't done anything wrong, which is something we've grown to accept, I guess, which I don't think is right. But social media obviously has its benefits, so in some cases, I'll probably be prepared to accept that for the benefits that social media does.
Yeah, I mean, it's awful that people categorize certain people just because one guy says something. All Chelsea fans are now racist. I mean, that's completely and utterly ridiculous. That people are tweeting out stuff like that. I mean, there's so many instances of this happening in so many different sports, and it's wrong. I mean, what annoys me the most about it, the fact someone in this day and age still feels like it's relevant to mention have a go at someone because of their race in the 21st century. It's 2018. We're a very inclusive world now with people's genders, people's sexualities, race, anyone's opinion, and I think it's completely wrong the way that someone who plays football, yes, he earns a lot of money, yes, he gets stick for tattoos that he gets and some of the what he spends his money on, but he's worked hard to get into that position in the first place, and the fact someone has had a go at him just because of the colour of his skin is completely awful and completely wrong. And you say about social media as well. I mean, people having to go up because they're trying to sort of because they support a certain club is completely wrong, and I it does annoy me. Like, like you said, it's wrong, and um, I'm hoping the guy that it had who said it gets banned for life, and he gets put in jail because sometimes it's completely wrong in this day and age to come out with comments like that. But apart from the actual fan, how has this season been for you as a Chelsea fan? Completely regardless of that last week's moment, but everything else regarding Chelsea Football Club, how has it been this season?
Yeah, it's been a good season. I mean, last season was pretty disappointing on the whole. Nowhere in the Champions League, nowhere in the Premier League. Well, almost top four, but we decided to draw with Huddersfield and drop points to Newcastle or someone at the end of the season.
Yeah.
At least we won the FA Cup, so we got a trophy. But Sarri's made huge differences to the club. Unbeaten for our first however many games it was until Tottenham came and slapped us up. But that's bound to happen eventually. I've also had the privilege of going to 4 games, I think it is this season. All of minus the Fulham game. 3 of the games have been very good. I went to the United one, which was good. Derby, which was Lampard, obviously. That was an entertaining game, and obviously City last weekend, which, despite the incident, was still a fantastic game to go to. And yeah, I have high hopes for the season. Obviously, hopefully we can win the Europa League. We're not going to win the Premier League. Top 4 would be very good. Maybe we can win the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup as well. But if we don't win a trophy this season, I'll be quite surprised. And just making sure we qualify for the Champions League next season is also very important. But United aren't going to qualify. If Spurs don't sign anyone in January, they're going to drop off as well. So I'm pretty confident that we'll manage to qualify for that next season.
Yeah, it's interesting to see a Chelsea, because you're the first Chelsea fan I've spoken to in a very long time, and the expectation for your club. I mean, I'm a Swansea City fan, so our expectation is just to stay in the Championship. So it's completely different, a completely different mentality. But yeah, Chelsea is such a massive club. It doesn't surprise me that you've got such a high expectation. And I wish Chelsea the best of luck this season. But moving on back to Formula One, I've always asked you that because I've watched your highlight videos in the past, and why do you record them on your phone and not like a capture card?
Yeah, this is a question that I get quite a lot actually, and yeah, it is very very weird to do it that way. And yeah, I started doing. I don't have a capture card. My laptop's pretty crap. And I guess I could use the DVR, but for me, the easiest way to do it is that way. That's the way I know how to do it since I started doing that in 2016. And I know it's not amazing quality, but I'm not making it for an audience of thousands of people. I'm just making it for the people who are in the leagues.
Yes.
To watch. I'm not trying to grow and become a massive YouTuber on the F1 community. I'm just doing it because I enjoy doing it, and because some of the drivers in the leagues that I race in like to watch it, especially in ILR this season. Every week I get questions like, when I don't upload the highlights, like I haven't done this week, where are they? And I normally get very positive feedback from the drivers, which is really nice given I'm doing it in quite a different way. But yeah, the reason I do it is just because that's the way I know how to do it. That's the easiest way for me, and I don't feel the need to be trying to grow as a massive YouTuber. That's not my ambition.
Yeah, I mean, if it serves a purpose, why change? I think it's simple as that, and it's not the conventional way of doing it, but if it works for yourself and it works for the people who want to watch it, I mean, carry on doing it that way. It's just I've never seen anyone do it like that. It's a bit strange, but like I said, if it works for you that way, it works for you in that way. Um, I've always wondered this as well. You have such a large Twitter following. I'm just trying to figure out because we talked about this after a stream I did in World Online Racing. We were in the party together, and you don't really know why you've got such a large following either.
No, I mean, I've got just over, I think it's 1.1 thousand followers, and most people would say, oh yeah, you follow like 5,000 people or something, but I think I follow like 600, so it's not like I've got a horrendous ratio like to certain rally drivers who like to follow and unfollow every single person within the community. Um, but yeah, I don't know. When I was like 13 and 14, I did used to follow most people back. But yeah, I don't do that anymore. And people just continue to follow me. So I do have quite a few followers on Twitter. I guess that means my opinion's valued. Maybe not. But I'm not hugely controversial. I don't tweet outrageous things. I think I'm pretty sensible in most of my views, and maybe that's what people look for in the F1 community, or Twitter community in general. People who know what they're talking about, which I like to think I do in most cases, and people who aren't going around tweeting absolute garbage, which there's a fair few accounts which do.
Yeah, there are. There's a lot of people that do chat a lot of rubbish. And I mean, if you tweet out, I mean, I've done it in the past where you tweet out certain things and you just get unfollowed by quite a few people because you have that opinion and it's against everyone else. And yeah, if you've got a valid opinion, I'm sure that's where you've gained so many followers. If people respect you, I think. I don't know anyone who's ever said anything bad about you. So a lot of people think quite highly of you. So that's one reason I guess you got so many followers. And I mean, you're just a genuine guy. I mean, I don't think I've heard anything bad about you ever. And I've been around for like 2.5 years now. So I mean, it's all good from my point. I mean, going. I mean, you're 17, right? At the moment.
Yes, yes.
So over the next few years, I mean, what's the ambition for F1 Maestro? Where do you want to be in the next 5 years? Is it university, college, apprenticeship, or maybe something completely different?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm 17. My birthday was in October. Um, I'm currently doing A levels in maths, history, physics, and
Oh wow.
economics. Um, I don't know if you saw, but I did exceptionally well at my GCSEs, so it's been a good stepping stone to where I want to be. I don't know exactly at the moment. I'm thinking probably university with something economics related, but I don't need to think about that just yet. Although, as I say that, I don't have a huge amount of time either. But I've got a vague idea, but nothing exact yet, as to what I want to do. And after university, getting a job and getting some money is got to be the main priority. Unfortunately, that's not exactly easy in the modern day world, but hopefully with my grades, if I continue to achieve at such a high level, I should be able to find myself a job reasonably quickly. But that's 4, 5, 6 years away. That's not at the forefront of my mind at the moment.
Yes, of course. I mean, it's you need to focus on what you're doing right now and not think about the future. But you always have to have that in the back of your mind going forward, just in case anything happens, of course. But yeah, wish the best of luck to you going forward. Did you did you find growing up as a Formula One fan that it was difficult to find someone in sort of same who was also a fan? Because a lot of people that I've spoken to in these episodes find that when they were in school there weren't many people who liked F1, and sometimes people got bullied because they liked F1, and they just said, oh, it's just cars going around in a circle, it's not football, it's not rugby. Do you find it difficult in school being an F1 fan, or was it okay for you?
Yeah, I get the point entirely that there's not many F1 fans around. It's not football. It's not rugby, I guess. Football definitely the main sport, but there's a couple of people in my current school. I think there's 200 people in plus in my year, and I'm the only person, to my knowledge, who watches F1 like properly. My friends like know what's going on or watch the news, so they'll be like, "Oh, Hamilton won the race," but they're not that interested. I think they just do it more because they know that I'm a massive fan. But no, I don't. Obviously, I've had cars going around in circles as a joke, but no one's like really taken the piss out of me for liking F1. It's just something a bit different, I guess, and that's my choice of sport to watch as my main sport, along with football. Other people prefer rugby. I'm not going to take the piss out of them for preferring that. So, I mean, in general, I think I've been quite lucky. If people are getting bullied for watching F1, which is obviously ridiculous, but unfortunately, you do get some idiots or some people who like to take the piss as teenagers and try and annoy people. But yeah, nothing like that has happened to me, which I'm quite grateful for, it must be said.
Yeah, it's good to hear because I had a little bit of that when I was in school, and I do know people, who've come on this series and sort of offline that where they've been picked on because of they like a sport, which is completely wrong. You're not going to get picked on if you like football or you like rugby. Um, and schools can be quite a toxic atmosphere at times. I mean, you're 17 now. Have you ever had any sort of bad experiences during school, or is it been quite a clean way going from secondary school up to A level now?
I think I've been quite lucky in terms of the fact that I've gone to, in general, good schools where you don't have bullies or people who are out to try and upset people. And in general, I don't think I've ever been in a situation where I felt um, upset over what someone's done or someone's been trying to annoy me. So obviously, it does happen, unfortunately, at most schools, but I've been able to stay out of any sort of situations like that, luckily. Whereas maybe if I'd been in a different school, it could have been more difficult for me to avoid situations like that.
Yeah, of course. Well, it's good to hear. That's good to hear from yourself that you've managed to get through, because school can be a nasty place at times, and it's good to hear that you've got through pretty cleanly. Well, we got a lot of Twitter questions, which I've introduced for the second season of this series. So we've had one or two that we've already talked about. Thank you, Hayden and Jamie, for those questions. Got one from David, or well, formerly Cyril Rosberg, and he says, "Why is AOR Season 11 Xbox One on F1 2015 the best season in league racing history?"
Well, I mean, apart from the fact that I was racing in it, yeah, I mean, everyone who raced in season 11, I think, really enjoyed it. It was a much more laid back season in comparison to the other seasons, even on 2014, despite that game being an absolute joke. JD took it pretty seriously, I think, Broshek as well. But on season 11, 2015, is 12 to 16 people every week just coming out enjoying the game. Had a decent laugh with each other, and I still remember that the battles, etc. Probably one of my favourite seasons within league racing, and everyone who raced in that season is in agreement that it was definitely the best season ever in league racing. Also, I got carried to the Constructor Championship by Brendan Lee, so that's also a positive.
That's not a bad thing, yeah. Brilliant. Got a question from Melanie. Hopefully you're going to understand this question. He says, "How fond of the coloured snake are you?"
Yes, the coloured snake is the racing line.
Ah, I see.
Yes, I've had a lot of that about using the racing line because obviously those of you who don't know may have picked up that I said I've raced in AOR F1, which means I didn't use the line. That was a controversial topic. We were racing GP2 and were forced, me, the Mighty Midget, and Big C were forced to move up to F1 and turn the line off. I'm not that bothered about it anymore. I was quite annoyed at the time. Obviously, being an F1 gave me a very good experience. I managed to pick up 3 podiums. So yeah, I turned the line off at the back end of 2015 because I had to race in F1 on AOR, and then I made the mistake of turning it back on at the start of 2016, which I really shouldn't have done. And now I can't. On 2015, I actually adapted what I thought exceptionally well. Harsh that game was in terms of making mistakes with the track limits without the racing line. I thought I did very well, and now I can't do it anymore. Although that said, I did do a league race last week in ILR where I raced without the line for the first time since 2015, and I finished 4th. So maybe I can do it. I do want to try and do it again, maybe for the second season of league racing on this game. But it's just whether at the moment I do 3 leagues a week, and I couldn't put the time in for 3 leagues a week to learn no line. So maybe if I drop down to 1 or 2 leagues a week for the second season on this game, I'll try and do it. So I do need the coloured snake at the moment, Melanie, but hopefully I'll be able to get rid of it soon for you.
Brilliant. Yeah, I can imagine it's difficult once you've. It's like no, maybe not a drug is the right term, but once you've turned it on, it's difficult to turn it off again because it's such a helpful tool to have when you're league racing. So, well, I mean, if you've done one race, you finished 4th. I mean, it shows what potential you have to do it without it. So maybe you can turn it off going forward, like you said at the start of the second season of leagues on this game. I'm going to give you one more question from Jordan. He says, "Would you rather fight 100-sized ducks, horse? No. Would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck?"
The age-old question.
Yes.
I think I first saw this back on Into the Barrow's 10,000 subs Q&A back on 2012, and it pops up every now and again. I don't know. I don't think I want to fight a horse-sized duck. That sounds quite dangerous. But then there's 100 of them. Preferably neither. I know that doesn't really answer the question. So we'll go for 100 duck-sized horses. Hopefully I could hold them off. Probably not, but I give it a go.
Before we get swarmed, like
yeah, probably.
Have you ever seen Jurassic Park 2? There's a scene where there's little dinosaurs where there's one of them,
I have seen
and then
it.
there's
yes.
like 100 turn up, and then they kill him. So I can
Yes,
imagine it would be like that, but they just trod on you rather than eat you. Well, I don't know. Maybe horse-sized ducks like me. I don't know. We're going off topic here. But I've got final 2 questions that I always ask any of my guests, and the first is well, actually we've got 3 this time. So, oh no, we've answered one of those. So we'll go over 2. The first one is, if you could give yourself some advice 5-10 years ago, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
What advice would I give myself? In terms of life in general, or something more specific?
It can be
life in general.
It could be life in general. It could be, or it could be something specific. It could be both.
Always take opportunities that you have. Don't pass up on potential opportunities to do things. You won't know when they might come again in the future.
Very good piece of advice. Very quick and to the point. Usually we get a very long-worded answer, but nice and quick to the point. That's like what I like to hear. And finally, what do you want to be remembered for?
I'm not going to be quick to the point on this one. I don't know really. I mean, hopefully I want to be remembered in a good way, but I think that's just common sense. Hopefully I wouldn't need to say that. Hopefully no one wants to be remembered for bad things. But yeah, I want to be remembered for being a sensible, calm person who's always helpful to other people, I guess. I don't really know. I'm just looking for good things, which hopefully I fulfill here. But yeah, some sort of positive way by other people, and hopefully I will be remembered in future. But I couldn't really give you a specific answer for that one. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Maybe you remember just for that season 15 of AOR. No, not season 15. Yes, no, season 11. Sorry.
11.
Yeah,
Yeah.
11. Yeah, maybe just remember for that. I was having that on your gravestone when you die. No, well, thank you ever so much, James, or F1 Maestro, for joining me today on Beyond the Visor, season 2, episode number 2. If you've got any questions for James, I'm sure he'll be able to answer them in the comments if he hasn't answered any questions that we talked about today. You can put it down in the comment section below. Don't forget to follow him as well. It's on Twitter and YouTube. It is down in the description. You can follow myself there as well on all my social media. Thank you, James, for joining me this evening. It's been great chatting to you. And if you've got any suggestions for who you want next on this series, guys, let me know in the comment section below or on Twitter as well. You can do it there. So thank you ever so much for listening, guys, and we'll be back very soon for episode number 3. Thank you and good night.